The power of habit.
The power of habit.
The power of habit.
The first-rate business book or just another in a series in the self-help category. Who is it for? Is it worth it? Or is it a big waste of time? In this video, I will answer all the questions and give a review of the book as a reader, and help you decide if you want to read this book too. Have you ever gotten angry with yourself because of a bad habit that you keep repeating? Have you ever tried to adopt new habits, but you simply didn't persevere enough or didn't know how? This book can help you with that. A study by Duke University researchers in 2006 found that more than 40% of the actions people performed each day weren't actual decisions, but habits. Although it may seem to us that we live life in such a way that we make conscious decisions in our life every day, if we think a little deeper we will realize that our life is governed by the habits we have acquired. For example, when you wake up in the morning, what is the first thing you do? We probably make the bed, brush our teeth, and take a shower without really even realizing it. These actions are habits that we have adopted over the years. Habit is a choice that we deliberately make at some point and then stop thinking about it, but continue doing. At one point, we consciously decide how many times a day we will eat, when we will brush our teeth, when we will train. After a while, we stop making these decisions consciously and our behavior becomes automated. It's a natural process. By understanding how this happens, we can rebuild our behavior patterns in any way we want. As a fan of football and sports in general, I have seen many times how a certain coach cannot achieve a good play by his team, and then his successor achieves outstanding results with the same athletes. Part of the credit for such successes certainly goes to breaking old habits and patterns in the game and creating new automatisms in the game. While reading the book, I asked myself a question: why does our brain develop habits? Why does our brain crave automated actions? And I found the answer in the book. The process in which the brain converts a sequence of actions into an automatic routine is known as chunking, and it's at the root of how habits form. Scientists say habits emerge because the brain is constantly looking for ways to save effort. Left to its own devices, the brain will try to make almost any routine into a habit because habits allow our mind to ramp down more often. When I found the answer, I got an extra incentive to read the book further because I assumed I would come across a wealth of useful information. And I was right. Now that we know why the brain creates habits, let's see what this book has to offer. Number 1. The book will tell you how habits work and how are they formed, the scientific approach. Number 2. The book will help you understand the power of habits among individuals, organizations, and societies through powerful and impactful examples. Number 3. The book will describe various instances and stories around products and individuals to emphasize the importance of habits and how we can use habits to our advantage. The book helps you understand why habits are at the very core of anything you do, how you can change them, and what impact that will have on your business, life, and society. The book is primarily divided into 3 parts. Part 1. Habits of individuals. Part 2. Habits of successful organizations. Part 3. Habits of societies. Now that you know how the book is divided, let's listen to a summary of the key parts, in my opinion. Part 1. Habits of individuals. Habits are powerful but delicate. They can emerge outside our consciousness or can be deliberately designed. Habits work in 3-step loops. Cue. Routine. Reward. The cue is what triggers you to do the habit. The routine is the behavior you then automatically engage in. Lastly, you'll receive a reward for completing the routine. Example: you get up every morning, make coffee, and have a rich-tasting coffee with a great aroma. What is a cue here, what is a reward, and what is a routine? You get up every morning. This is the cue. Make a coffee. That is a routine. And have a rich-tasting coffee with a great aroma. This is a reward. This is known as a habit loop. Once the entire loop is established through a steady period of time, the brain stops fully participating in decision-making, letting an action put in autopilot mode. Hence, a habit is born. This also means that we can take control of the loop if we learn to create new neurological routines to overpower our less desirable or undesirable habits as long as cues are present. Even small shifts can end the pattern. But since we often don't recognize these habit loops as they grow, we are blind to our ability to control them. By learning to observe the cues and rewards, though, we can change the routines. You might be wondering, what makes cues and rewards work? What powers a habit loop? The answer is craving. That craving is what powers the habit loop. One of the most interesting parts of the book was the story of the sports success of coach Tony Dungy, i.e. the team he led, because the success of the team was based, among other things, on the adopted habits and the practice of adopting automatic routines on the field. Champions don't do extraordinary things, Dungy would explain. They do ordinary things, but they do them without thinking, too fast for the other team to react. They follow the habits they've learned. His coaching strategy embodied an axiom, a golden rule of habit change that study after study has shown is among the most powerful tools for creating change. Dungy recognized that you can never truly extinguish bad habits. Rather, to change a habit, you must keep the old cue and deliver the old reward, but insert a new routine. Belief is another concept author presents as integral to making a new habit stick. He doesn't get too deep into how beliefs are created, but he emphasizes that without a strong belief in imagining a positive outcome to the routine, it is less likely to stick. Duhigg also demonstrates how social groups can often make or break a person's habits, both positively and negatively. He believes change happens far more easily with the aid of a group, where both support and peer pressure play outsized roles in our willingness to make a change. He uses Alcoholics Anonymous as an example of this theory. At some point, people in AA look around the room and think, if it worked for that guy, I guess it can work for me. Duhigg presents a few case studies in sports, one about Michael Phelps and his ritualized habits of practice and swim race preparation. These automatic routines are common with high-performing athletes and demonstrate how mental visualization and running the videotape in as much detail as possible to imagine a successful outcome is an effective means for peak performance. Many athletes who utilize these techniques have already competed and won the race in their minds before it even begins. Duhigg cites some studies around willpower and self-control and how willpower, like a muscle, is a finite resource, and once expended during a typical day, self-control becomes more difficult. But he says willpower is a learned skill, and the earlier learned the better. For example, kids who take music lessons or sports, and stick with them, are likely to have better self-regulation later in life. Part 2. Habits of Successful Organizations. After discussing individual habits and their formation, Duhigg talks about habits in organizations. In this, probably the best section of the book, the author introduces us to the term Keystone habit. Keystone habits start a process that, over time, transforms everything. Keystone habits say that success doesn't depend on getting every single thing right, but instead relies on identifying a few key priorities and fashioning them into powerful levers. This book's first section explained how habits work and how they can be created and changed. However, where should a would-be habit master start? Understanding Keystone habits hold the answer to that question. The habits that matter most are the ones that, when they start to shift, dislodge, and remake other patterns. The key message is that if we adopt just one good habit, it will influence and stimulate other changes in our life or the life of the organization. For example, if we start exercising regularly, we will start to feel better and look better, which will then possibly encourage us to move more, meet new people, ensure long-term good health, and potentially much more. Remember, everything can start with one keystone habit change. The initial shift starts a chain reaction that helps other good habits take hold. In his book, The Power of Habits, Charles Duhigg uses the term small wins to refer to modest behavior changes that can set off a chain reaction of more and better changes. We should take advantage of the science of small wins that convince us that change is possible. Rewarding ourselves for daily achievements, it reinforces our capability for overall change. Small wins are exactly what they sound like, and are part of how keystone habits create widespread changes. A huge body of research has shown that small wins have enormous power and influence disproportionate to the accomplishments of the victories themselves. Small wins are a steady application of a small advantage, one Cornell professor wrote in 1984. Once a small win has been accomplished, forces are set in motion that favor another small win. Small wins fuel transformative changes by leveraging tiny advantages into patterns that convince people that bigger achievements are within reach. Good things don't come easy, and that makes good times more appreciated and cherished. But it's very easy to lose sight of the rewards when you're working towards them and they're a million miles away. In fact, day to day, the habits you practice can seem pointless, as if they won't achieve anything at all. It's only when we look back in retrospect that we realize the benefits of practicing these habits and the good that they do. Here are 5 small win ideas that in my opinion could lead to a cascade of positive changes. Number 1. Learn something new every day. You will be amazed looking back after the year has passed. Number 2. Write your goals every morning. In this way, you will be able to easily achieve small victories every day, without unnecessary wandering. Number 3. Completed a to-do list. With this, you will maintain motivation and create momentum towards success. Number 4. Step outside your comfort zone. Stepping outside one's comfort zone is an important, and almost universal, factor in personal growth. If you do this every day, you will literally be unrecognizable. Number 5. Acknowledge and celebrate small wins. When you hit a milestone or achieve a small improvement, don't simply breeze past it. Instead, take some time to reflect on your successes and celebrate them. The power of goal setting. Duhigg discusses the power of goal setting and how goals help us create positive habits that lead to small and greater successes. Measuring one's progress against a target goal is a powerful method in helping regulate behavior, reinforce autonomy, and trigger reward systems. It can be overwhelming to write a big goal on your to-do list. When you do, make sure you break those goals down into SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. Once you do that, Charles Duhigg says, your productivity will skyrocket. The power of Keystone habits within organizations. Researchers have found institutional habits in almost every organization or company they've scrutinized. Individuals have habits, groups have routines, wrote the academic Jeffrey Hodgson, who spent a career examining organizational patterns. Routines are the organizational analog of habits. Cultures grow out of the Keystone habits in every organization, whether leaders are aware of them or not. Keystone habits transform us by creating cultures that make clear the values that, in the heat of a difficult decision or a moment of uncertainty, we might otherwise forget. By the way, if you want to learn more about business strategy, I highly recommend the book, Your Next 5 Moves, Master the Art of Business Strategy by Patrick Bet-David. Part 3. Habits of Societies. In general, sociologists say, most of us have friends who are like us. We might have a few close acquaintances who are richer, a few who are poorer, and a few of different races, but, on the whole, our deepest relationships tend to be with people who look like us, earn about the same amount of money, and come from similar backgrounds. The third and final part of the book examines the importance of habits in social movements, such as the civil rights movement of the 1960s. Here we learn that movements tend to follow a 3-part process. To start with, a movement tends to begin with a group of close acquaintances and friends. The movement tends to grow when these people spread it to the broader communities of which they are a part. Finally, in order to really take hold and spread, the movement must be guided forward by an effective leader who lays down new habits for the movement's adherents in a way that allows them to gain a sense of identity. Conclusion. As a conclusion to all of the above, I would like to point out that there are many other interesting and useful pieces of information in the book that are not covered in this video. I learned a lot about my habits. My own habits are now easier to understand. After reading the book now I have some ideas of how to make those changes. I hope this summary has helped you to better understand the concepts within this book. Go out and grab a copy of this book if you haven't already. You are going to take in the knowledge at a much deeper level, from all the stories and examples that the author goes over. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.